Chapter 1: The Awakened Zombie King, the Terrifying Devouring Power. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Blue starred in a certain city in China, the once prosperous streets have now become dilapidated. Scrapped and damaged vehicles were randomly discarded on the roadside. There are still old blood stains on the road. A gust of breeze blew up several old plastic bags, bringing proof of human activities to this city that had long lost its vitality. Roar! Several zombies in ragged clothes and hideous faces were wandering on the side of the street. Their dull and empty eyes were covered with bloodshot eyes, and their hands kept stretching in the air. After being mutated and infected into zombies, they no longer need to use their eyes to search for prey. They rely on their eyes. It's a keen sense of smell and flexible hearing. Suddenly, a zombie seemed to smell something and suddenly raised its head. Puff. The next moment, its head shattered in an instant. In an instant, blood spattered like rain, blood was shining everywhere, and the smell of blood instantly attracted a group of zombies around him. A large wave of zombies came one after another, and a flash of blood was seen, accompanied by a terrifying roar from far to near. Roar! Poof! More blood splattered in the air, dyeing the dim street red. Upon closer inspection, the bloody light turned out to be a huge zombie monster that was several meters tall and covered in blood. The blood-red zombies jumped ferociously onto the scrapped car, and then jumped away quickly. What was left behind were broken glass shards and fine bullet holes on the front cover of the car. Bang! The moment the glass fragments hit the ground, the car riddled with bullets exploded. The dilapidated car wreckage was accompanied by gunpowder smoke and dirty dust that filled the air. Mixed with the strong smell of blood, thick fog like a sandstorm swept across the streets in an instant. On the other side of the dusty sky, a group of soldiers wearing Special Forces equipment were chasing after them at high speed, but stopped in front of the thick fog. The leading captain, wearing a mask, picked up the communicator on his waist and said to the other side. "Mist appeared in Area B1, and we lost the Fire Lord." After a while, I heard a cold female voice coming from the other side of the communicator. "I understand. Hold the B1 area and don't let the target escape. I will send ability users to join you and do my best to surround and suppress the Balrog Lord." "Yes." After the leader answered, he immediately put down the communicator in his hand, waved to the teammates behind him, and the team immediately moved forward and took action. On the other side of the thick blood mist, red zombie figures kept flashing in the city, making ear-piercing roars from time to time. The other zombies nearby also trembled instinctively after hearing this, and then roared, "Ouch!" The city at night becomes even more eerie. The red figure kept running wildly, and at the next moment it swooped down towards the high-rise building. The strong impact of the moment continued unabated after smashing through the glass, and actually penetrated the entire building. White smoke billowed behind him, the building fell down instantly, and the red-clothed zombie crashed into a deep alley below without looking back. Hiss! When the body hit the wall, bursts of sparks appeared. The red zombie fell on the ground at the entrance of the alley, twitching all over. The blood-red eyes were full of violence and bloodlust, and a zombie staggered towards the alley. The weird thing is that the zombie staggering from the alley didn't avoid the red monster like the ordinary zombies on the street before. Instead, they roared at the red zombies with ice-blue mist exuding from their mouths, but the strong arm of the red zombie stretched out in an instant, and grabbed the zombie's face with his open palm. T-Online Novel Network. What's amazing is that the thick arm instantly exploded into a ball of blood mist. The blood mist condensed and turned into a blood-colored vine. Blood bubbles kept appearing on the blood-colored vines, and the captured zombies gradually became thinner. As if all the blood in the body has been drained, slowly, the eyes of the zombie in red became redder and redder, but the zombie in his hand became like a mummy and was casually discarded on the ground. It was already dead and could no longer die. The red zombie just abandoned the ordinary zombies, and covered his head with a ferocious expression. The roaring voice gradually became deeper, and then his head tilted and he passed out in the deep alley. The amazing thing is that the body of the red zombie is slowly wasting away, and the red skin is gradually fading into the pale color of a patient. Immediately, something even more unbelievable happened. This blood-red-skinned terrifying monster gradually transformed into a human form, and finally his appearance became a handsome young man. On a street a few hundred meters away from the alley, a group of soldiers wearing blue uniforms of the Special Forces were searching in an orderly manner. From time to time, monster-like roars can be heard in the silent streets. In a dark, deep alley, a young man in ragged clothes and almost naked body is lying on the wall, not knowing whether to live or die. But if you look closely, you can see the young man. Chest rises and falls slightly. As if awakened by the unquiet night around him, the young man's eyelashes trembled and he slowly opened his eyes. Touching her dazed head, Mu Qiu, who had just woke up, felt as if her whole body was about to fall apart. If I had known about the graduation party, I wouldn't have drank so much. Why does my whole body hurt? Why? Rubbing her sore eyes, Mu Qiu realized something was wrong. She was not in a soft and comfortable bed at home, but instead lying in a deep alley somewhere. His body subconsciously stepped back, but his hand felt it touched something unconsciously. When he suddenly turned around, he discovered that what was next to him was not a stone, but a shriveled and hideous mummy. Fuck! Mu Qiu was about to scream subconsciously, but chaotic memories flooded into her brain like a tide through the neural network. It was a scene like the Azura Hell, a red figure, as if covered in a blood-stained garment, with corpses like a hill beneath him. Each corpse was shrunken and looked horrified, as if it had experienced some horrific experience before death. At this moment, the blood-clothed figure looks like a monster destroying the world. Roar! The blood-clothed figure was surrounded by zombies. Each and every one of them roared at the bloody figure without fear of death. Not only that, but standing in front of the bloody figure was a huge one-horned monster of unknown species. Lava was boiling all over its body, and it rushed towards the blood-clothed monster with its bloody mouth open. Chapter 2: Zombies Trying to Blend into Human Society. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The memories were replayed in Mu Qiu's brain like a film. In these moments, Mu Qiu felt dizzy and his brain was about to burst. When he finished reading these memories, fine cold sweat had already appeared on Mu Qiu's forehead. He clearly saw that the blood-red figure in the memory was his own face. And this world is no longer the real world he lives in. The zombie virus broke out here 2 years ago. Cities were occupied by the majestic zombie army. Countless people were displaced and their families were broken up, and the self in the memory was also not spared. What surprised him was that he turned into a mutant zombie. Evolved a powerful ability devouring. His flame ability was obtained after devouring the unicorn monster in his memory. And he became stronger step by step while devouring this powerful ability, and finally became the zombie emperor in this city. And he found that the zombie he just devoured was also a mutant zombie, and the ability it evolved was actually ice ability. Did I travel to a parallel world, or? Mu Qiu's face instantly turned horrified, frowning and no longer speaking. Another guess that Mu Qiu did not dare to say was that the past 10 years in real life were all a dream. The real me had turned into a zombie that devoured human flesh and blood 2 years ago. But he could no longer think so much, because he remembered that he had been captured by the neighboring survivor base in his territory 2 months ago. And he suffered inhuman abuse and research during these 2 months. However, he relied on his own strong self-healing ability to break free from the restraints after recovering 3 days ago, and fled back to his territory after making a big fuss in the base. He also regained consciousness after fainting on the way to escape. There were still soldiers chasing him behind him. No matter what, I am in a very dangerous situation now. Mu Qiu forced himself to calm down. Gusts of cold wind whistled, and Mu Qiu, whose body had evolved into a zombie king, felt a little chill in his heart. Without time to sort out the clues, and without caring about the shriveled corpse beside him, Mu Qiu hurriedly changed into the blood-stained clothes on the corpse. As soon as he thought about it, a ball of fire appeared in his palm, and the tattered clothes and the shriveled corpse that he had changed were burned to ashes by the flames he released. Just as he stood up staggeringly, there was a sound of footsteps behind him. Mu Qiu smiled bitterly but did not run away. If the probability of a capable person appearing among humans is 1 in 1,000, then the probability of a mutant zombie among zombies is 1 in 10,000. Unlike mutant zombies with mutations in their bodies, real mutant zombies have all kinds of abilities, each of which is weird and powerful, making it hard to guard against. Already trapped in heavy siege, it is obviously impossible to escape in the current situation. The meticulous Mu Qiu immediately made a decision to blend into human society. A zombie tried to blend into the human world. This decision sounds a bit horrifying, but even though Mu Qiu has received all the memories and combat experience of the Zombie King, it does not mean that he can accept the fact that he has become a zombie that eats human flesh and blood in an instant. Subconsciously, he still hopes that he can stay in human society. He swears that he is definitely not thinking about sneaking into humans to survive because he is afraid of death. But, can he really get away with it? Ka. Who is it? Feeling the voice behind him, Mu Qiu subconsciously raised his hands, turned around and faced the soldiers in front of him, with a look of surprise and panic on his face. Puff, that I saw a girl's pleasant laughter coming from the front of the soldiers. Mu Qiu looked closely and saw a pretty girl in blue in the crowd. Unlike other soldiers, this girl did not wear the Special Forces combat uniform and did not seem to take any protective measures. There are a few people in this team dressed like this girl should be a capable person. Mu Qiu thought to himself, as the name suggests, the ability users are humans who have undergone mutations and evolution after being infected with the virus. They are now the fighters standing at the forefront of humanity. Uncle is so funny. The girl smiled at the leader with her hands covering her mouth. Indeed, Mu Qiu now changed into the clothes of the mummy, but the originally clean white clothes were already stained with blood, and his handsome face was also covered with dirt and blood. Coupled with his panic expression and the action of raising his hands, he looked extremely embarrassed and weird. The awkward situation was instantly broken by the girl's words. The leading captain looked at the blue-clothed girl helplessly and said helplessly, "You girl. Family members know their own affairs. This girl has been eccentric since she was a child. Now that the end of the world has come, this child has awakened her superpowers and no one can control her. Just now a red monster passed by here and burned a zombie to ashes," Mu Qiu said tremblingly, but his eyes kept staring at the blue light guns in the hands of the soldiers. In memory, these guns have long been improved versions, which have great lethality to zombies. In order to deal with me, even such a small number of weapons were taken out. I understood many things in an instant, my body trembled, and then layers of frost appeared on the ground. My home is nearby. I went out to look for food because I was too hungry. I didn't do anything. Seeing the layers of frost condensing on the ground, the girl in blue who spoke just now exclaimed. This kind of ability, could it be that this is a rare elemental ability user? What? There can be people with abilities in dangerous areas like the red zone. Or are they elemental ones? This is a real treasure. Everyone looked at each other, talking, and looked at Mu Qiu with surprise. The captain did not say anything, but looked at the alley in front of him, and then raised the communicator in his hand. Report the S-Class Heretic, Lord Fire Demon. We have fled to Area A3. In addition, we found a survivor in an alley, suspected to have elemental powers. I only heard a cold female voice coming from the communicator. Take the survivors back to the base and order Group C in Area A3 to prepare to meet the enemy. The other teams will continue to hunt and gather for an ambush to capture the target at any time. The captain who received the instruction immediately waved his hand, and then said to the girl in blue, "Linger, take the survivors back to the base for an awakening test. The people in Group A will follow me and continue the search." Yes. Why do you need me to do this kind of thing again? Hearing the girl's complaint, it was obvious that this was not the first time that she had picked up a survivor. Mu Qiu blinked her innocent eyes and said nothing. Watching the team leave, only Mu Qiu and the girl in blue were left in the small alley. The girl in blue looked at Mu Qiu reaching out her hand, showed a sweet smile and said, "Introduce yourself, I am Wei Ling. Son, a member of the Yuhai Base Special Forces." Mu Qiu hesitated for a moment, but still held the blood-stained hand and said deliberately to make herself a little nervous, "Mu Qiu, my name is Mu Qiu." Mu Qiu, right? I'll take you back to the base now. We're on the edge of the red zone and we shouldn't encounter powerful monsters. Don't worry, I can punch those ordinary zombies in the green zone one by one. After saying that, the girl raised her arms. Her slender white arms seemed to have no strength at all. The sun gradually dropped below the horizon, but the shadows of the two people in the dusk were illuminated very long. Chapter 3 Yuhai Base, a safe zone for survivors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You mean, this man named Mu Chiu was picked up by you in an alley in the red zone, not in an office in a high-rise building in the safety zone called Yuhai Base. A woman in military uniform with a frosty complexion was sitting on a chair and looking at a document report. There was a man standing in front of the table. If Mu Chiu were here, he would definitely recognize that this man was the Special Forces captain in the alley. The woman in military uniform has a strong nose and beautiful face, and her pair of willow eyebrows make her even more heroic, the captain replied, "Yes, sir." According to this person, his family ran a supermarket before the apocalypse, and after the apocalypse, he lived on the food stored in the supermarket. In recent days, the food has been used up, so he decided to take risks and go out in search of food. After hearing this, the woman in military uniform lowered her head and thought for a moment, then smiled, put the document on the table and said, "Wei Ying, how credible do you think his statement is?" The captain named Wei Ying said, "We have checked the supermarket he described. The entire building has been smashed to pieces by the Balrog. There is no evidence to confirm his identity." Wei Ying said, suddenly remembering the frost that formed on Mu Chiu's feet out of fear in the alley, and said in surprise, "But according to what we know, this Mu Chiu may be an ability user, or even a rare elemental system." "Oh. Is that so?" Hearing this, the woman in military uniform frowned, knocked on the table, pondered for a moment and said, "No matter what, elemental ability users are exactly the talents we are lacking now. Take him to do the awakened person test. If he passes, he will be trained in the training department, and someone will continue to keep an eye on him. If there are any special circumstances, he will inform me immediately." Wei Ying gave a standard military salute, that when Mu Chiu woke up, it was already dawn. He opened the quilt and climbed up from the bed. The bright sunshine shone warmly from outside through the window, making him mistakenly think that he was still in the prosperous but busy world before the end of the world. At this moment, Mu Chiu had already changed into a relatively clean white shirt. Unknowingly, he had been living in this Yuhai base for 3 days. He took a deep breath. Except for the occasional smell of blood, the air seemed to be no different from the real world. On the contrary, the large-scale shutdown of factory machines caused the nature to mother feels much more comfortable. Very funny thing, the place where he is now is a safe zone called Jade Sea Base. It is composed of survivor alliances from several nearby municipalities. It has tens of thousands of people. It can be regarded as one of the few shelters since the end of the world. He turned around and looked at the people on the bed around him. Except for a few people who were fast asleep, the people who were awake all had haggard faces and empty eyes as if they had lost their yearning for life. Like himself, these are all survivors who have been rescued from the disaster area, and most of them possess superpowers or have a tendency to evolve. Only then could they be arranged in this room that could protect them from wind and rain. The treatment in such a temporary residence is already very good. At least they can guarantee warm and cold meals. As for the fate of other ordinary people, it's hard to say. Those who were lucky enough to have a skill could still make a living in this age of cannibalism. Those who were unlucky enough to live on the streets and eat meat were commonplace. After taking a deep breath and sorting herself out, Mu Chiu walked out of the room and came outside. The moment she opened the door, the glaring sunlight shone in. The stinging Mu Chiu subconsciously raised her arms to block it. Sitting casually on a step by the side of the road, Mu Chiu couldn't help but fall into deep thought as she looked at the flow of people in front of her who were not crowded, with shabby clothes and dusty faces. First of all, it was obvious that he had sneaked into this survivor base. The medical staff responsible for the inspection did not notice any abnormalities in his body when he entered earlier. Coupled with the fact that he deliberately exposed his supernatural powers, it should have attracted the attention of his superiors, right? In my impression, there are very few awakened ones of other elemental types. When I was still the monster codenamed Fire Demon Lord, I was very interested in this kind of zombies, well, very interested in eating them. According to normal procedures, I should be placed into a combat team similar to the one before. Then I can develop steadily and plan for a retreat. Hey, it looks like you're recovering well. Not far away, a pretty and well-dressed girl walked over. She looked like an urban beauty before the apocalypse, and was incompatible with the slightly dilapidated scene around her. Wei Linger. Mu Qiu raised her hand and greeted the girl. This person is none other than Wei Linger, who took Mu Qiu all the way back to the Yuhai Base. During the 3 days he came to the base, apart from some staff responsible for reception and review, the one who had the most exchanges with him was the girl in front of him. At this moment, Wei Linger was holding a bag of bread in her hand. She walked closer and handed the bread to Mu Qiu naturally. Mu Qiu was stunned for a moment, then reacted and took the bread and said directly, "Why are you so nice to me?" That it's no wonder that Mu Qiu was surprised. Although food like bread is not very precious to an awakened person like Wei Linger, Mu Qiu had just met her, and Wei Linger couldn't make the mistake of staying away from home for him. "Come here, the other survivors in the house are still struggling to survive on 3 meals a day." Unexpectedly, after hearing Mu Qiu's words, Wei Linger just hammered Mu Qiu's shoulder and said with a smile, "Don't be so sentimental. I came to help you partly because your experience is somewhat similar to mine before. I can't help but sympathize, but on the other hand." Mu Qiu's eyes couldn't help but be attracted by the girl's words. An awakened person who may be of the elemental system has great potential for development. In other words, you are worthy of me personally coming to win over you. After saying that, Wei Linger patted Mu Qiu's shoulder, as if she was very optimistic about you. "So, young man, you have to work hard." Mu Qiu had already calculated something in her mind, but she was a little surprised by the girl's straightforward answer. She shook her head with a wry smile. "Sure enough, there really is no such thing as a free lunch." Wei Linger actually nodded in agreement. "Not bad, good, rare things can be lived in, rare things can be lived in." Stretching, the girl's slim curves were revealed. Wei Linger yawned slightly, rubbed her eyes and said, "It seems that you have almost recovered and it is time to adapt to the environment here. Someone will come over in the afternoon to take you for a test." After saying that, he patted Mu Qiu's shoulder again and smiled seriously. "If you are really a rare elemental awakener, the higher-ups will definitely train you. Awakened ones, test." As Mu Qiu said this, she unconsciously opened the bag of bread, grabbed the bread and took a bite. The bean paste filling tastes pretty good. Chapter 4 Conflict, the Privilege of the Awakened. You are listening at novelfull.audio. During the conversation with Wei Linger, Mu Qiu learned the specific information about the so-called awakened ones. Awakened refers to special humans who, after being corroded by viruses, instead of mutating into zombie monsters, have awakened some strange abilities. Among them, those who can prevent their brains from being invaded by viruses and lose their rationality are the noble awakened ones after the end of the world. On the contrary, those who lose their rationality and only have eating and destructive instincts in their bodies are called heretics. There are all kinds of superpowers, and they are all kinds of strange, but generally speaking, they are divided into 3 categories: superpower system, mutation system and element system. As the name suggests, the elemental system means that the body can control the awakened elements at will. Just like Mu Qiu's previous incarnation as the Fire Demon Lord, he can independently control fire, and the flames emitted can burn down an entire building in an instant. The Fire Lord was rated as a dangerous S-class heretic by Yuhai Base. Another example is the Ice Zombie heretic that he later devoured. Although his level was not high, he was still a rare and powerful person among the zombies. According to the level classification, he was at least B level. Elemental system superpowers are extremely rare among the entire group of awakened people. It is not an exaggeration to say that they are only 1 in a million. This is because their destructive power is astonishing and far beyond the comparison of the other 2 systems. Once the ability is raised to its peak, the ability of the awakened one is enough to overwhelm mountains and seas and destroy the world. The awakened ones of the mutant type tend to have physical mutations. Some of them are as rough as bears and become so powerful that they can blast through a building with one punch. Some of them grow the claws of a running wolf. Even the speed can be comparable to that of a running wolf on the grassland, but this type of awakened person usually has a strange appearance and a different physique than ordinary people. The last kind of super energy type awakened people are the most special. They often do not have the super destructive power of the elemental type, nor do they have the powerful physique of the mutation type awakened people, but the biggest feature of this type of awakened person is their ability. Strange abilities such as teleportation, invisibility, telekinesis, etc. are all classified as superpowers. Elemental elements are rare among the three categories of awakened ones. Now you know why the organization attaches so much importance to you. Wei Linger raised her eyebrows, Mu Qiu spread his hands and stared at his palm. Strictly speaking, he should belong to the awakened person of the superpower system, but his swallowing ability was too overbearing. Even among the mysterious awakened people of the superpower system, he was the best. As if she noticed something strange about Mu Qiu, Wei Linger turned around and asked, "Hey, what's wrong with you? You look absent-minded." That being stared at by Wei Linger's crystal blue eyes, Mu Qiu felt a little guilty and asked hurriedly, "What about you? What kind of awakened person are you?" Previously, Wei Linger escorted Mu Qiu back to the Yuhai safe zone. Fortunately, she didn't encounter any large monsters along the way. Even if there were some zombies blocking the road, they were all knocked away by Wei Linger's car. Mu Qiu had no chance to see Wei Linger's superpowers. Wei Linger stood up, put an index finger against her red lips, blinked her watery eyes and said, "Keep it a secret. You will know if you do the awakening test this afternoon." Wei Linger gave Mu Qiu a pass, and then left with brisk steps. Seeing this, Mu Qiu shook her head, threw the bread packaging aside, and turned back to the small house where she lived. "As soon as I entered the door, there happened to be soldiers inside distributing food. These foods were usually distributed to survivors and refugees like Xiang Muqiu who had just entered the base. Of course, there were also some moldy and rotten biscuits, bread, etc. Most of them were distributed to the survivors and refugees who had just entered the base. Sometimes I can't even do the most basic things," he sighed softly. Although he had the red bean bread sent by Wei Linger to cushion his belly, it was obviously not enough to stuff his teeth. So he went to get the food. As expected, Mu Qiu received a bag that was already seriously moldy. Mu Qiu tried to bite the biscuit, and the feeling in her mouth was comparable to chewing raw steel bars. After the soldiers who handed out food left, Mu Qiu sighed and put a bag of small steel bars on her pillow, intending to use it as emergency food when she was extremely hungry. "Hey, new guy." At this time, a fat man walked over from the side. The fat was almost piled up into a meatball. Mu Qiu really wondered how this fat man could eat in this apocalyptic world where he only had one meal and no next meal. "It looks like this. I saw with my own eyes that you came back after eating bread outside. After eating, you still dare to share the limited food with everyone." The fat man was seen looking fiercely at Mu Qiu, but his eyes never left the little steel bar that Mu Qiu placed on the bed. Mu Qiu smiled and said, "There is no rule in the base that you cannot receive food after eating it. Besides, it seems that it is not up to you whether I receive food or not, right?" The other survivors in the room didn't speak, but they all stared at Mu Qiu's bag of small steel bars with salivating eyes, as if they were seeing some rare treasure right in front of them. The fat man swallowed his saliva, looked at Mu Qiu and said, "Now is such a critical moment. Every bite of food means one less bite. Don't be so selfish, give me the food, and I will share it with everyone." After saying that, a pair of big hands grabbed the small steel bar that Mu Qiu placed on the bed. A cold light flashed across Mu Qiu's eyes, and there seemed to be a hint of red deep in her pupils. Crack! The fat man's rough arm was still suspended in the air, but was suddenly grabbed by a white and slender hand. The fat man looked closely and found that it was Mu Qiu who grabbed his arm to stop him. The fat man wanted to say something else, but Mu Qiu lowered his head and couldn't see the expression on his face, which made him a little unhappy. "You, get out of here." With delicious food in front of us, the fat man didn't intend to be polite anymore, and swung his big palm to hit Mu Chiu, but in an instant, the fat man suddenly felt that the air around him was a little cold, and then there was a tingling sensation in his right arm. In the blink of an eye, his right arm actually lost consciousness. The fat man lowered his head and found a scene that made him dumbfounded. Mu Chiu's eyes were lowered, and there was no expression on his cold face. Frost condensed on his white palms, and then the cold quickly spread to the fat man's arms, until the fat man's entire arm was frozen. The fat man staggered to the ground with a look of horror, tightly grasping his frozen right arm, and wailed. "Awakening, awakener. He is an awakener." Some survivors in the room saw that it was Mu Chiu's method, and immediately shouted in horror. Mu Chiu raised his head slightly, and glanced at the survivors around him with an indifferent expression. He saw that these people's eyes were filled with fear, anxiety, envy, respect and other emotions. The only thing that disappeared was the greed in his eyes when he saw the food just now. This is the benefit of power. The word possession has always been a privilege for the strong. Chapter 5 Activation, the Great World Sign-In System. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After learning about Mu Chiu's identity as an awakener, the survivors in the room all looked strange. Envy, jealousy, admiration, fear and other emotions filled this small room of less than 50 square meters. The fat man was quickly taken away by the patrolling soldiers, with ice still frozen on his arm. Amid the fat man's wailing and the soldiers' awe of Mu Chiu, the room fell into a strange silence, until later, no one in the group saw the fat man again. Mu Chiu shook his head. The fat man was driven by the cold air into his bones. If there was no special means or the awakener's ability to help him drive away the cold, this fat man would be completely useless. At the least, he would have a broken arm, and at the worst, he would be paralyzed all over, and he would have to spend the rest of his life in bed. In the past few days, he has been digesting the messy memories of his original body Flame Demon Lord. Most of the memories of the Flame Demon Lord were spent in endless killings, which made Mu Chiu inevitably infected with some ferocity. Just for a moment, Mu Chiu even wanted to drive the flame to burn the fat man to death. In the end, reason prevailed, which made Mu Chiu stop in time. He killed people openly in such a survivor base. Even if Mu Chiu was a noble awakener. Mu Chiu glanced at the many survivors in the room, but no one dared to look at him. Mu Chiu nodded with relief, lying on the bed and began to chew the small steel bar with relish. The strong can do whatever they want without caring about the feelings of others. This is the most naked reality in the end of the world. Congratulations to the host for meeting the punch-in conditions and binding the check-in system of the world. The cold voice echoed in Mu Chiu's ears. Mu Chiu was frightened and sat up. He looked around for a while but found that there was no one around. The first time you bind the system, you will be given a reward, the magic energy of the Holy Lord. Please pay attention to receive it. Then Mu Chiu felt a red halo emerge from his mind and merge into his body. His body was also filled with an inexplicable sense of power. In an instant, Mu Chiu was so satisfied that he almost transformed into the Flame Demon Lord, but he held back under the control of reason. The next check-in location is the Great World Entertainment Club. Unlock the reward. Niga's mask can summon the ghost army. Mu Chiu stood up with a plop, and scared the survivors around him. System. Golden Finger. As a senior novel fan in his previous life, the system was of course familiar to him. He thought that he was already gifted with the ability to devour, but he didn't expect that there was a system to help him. He tried to communicate with the so-called Great World Sign-In system, but did not get any response. The magic energy of the Holy Lord. Mu Chiu, who failed to get a response from the system, was not annoyed, but muttered to himself. Mu Chiu was stunned for a moment, but then he almost jumped up with excitement. Who is the Holy Lord? He can be said to be the boss throughout the entire Jackie Chan adventures. Both the 12 zodiac talismans and the 8 demons are related to him. Think about the 12 strange and unpredictable abilities, the invisibility of snakes, the floating of chickens, the deformation of monkeys, the ability of horses to cure all diseases, and the immortality of dogs. Just thinking about the uses of these abilities is enough to make people salivate. If he gets the magic energy of the Holy Lord, doesn't it mean that he gets all 12 talismans? Repressing the excitement in his heart, Mu Qiu left the room where the survivors lived and came to an open space in the woods on the hillside behind. Because in this end of the world, the more remote the place is, the higher the risk factor is, so not many people dare to come to such a place. There was no one around, but Mu Qiu closed his eyes slightly, and he could even hear the sound of the breeze blowing in his ears. The next moment, swish, 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 Mu Qiu suddenly opened his eyes, and saw two burning lasers shooting out of his eyes. In a flash, the fiery red-hot laser had shot a hole through the tree in front of Mu Qiu. It's really possible. Mu Qiu clearly remembered that the original Flame Demon Lord did not have the skill of laser eyes. He then tried the chicken's levitation, the rabbit's speed, the chicken and rabbit's flight, the dragon's explosion, the sheep's soul out of the body, the monkey's transformation. These talisman skills in the previous life were all the supernatural powers he dreamed of, but he realized them one by one. To be honest, the dragon talisman and the cow talisman are the most useless to me. Mu Qiu stood in the air and couldn't help but comment on the 12 abilities he had just obtained. His flame demon's true body originally possessed the ability to control fire and was born with divine power, but these two abilities were the most useless to him. It was difficult for him to try the horse talisman's cure for all diseases and the dog's immortality for a while. After all, he couldn't really crash into a wall and see if he would die. Mu Qiu looked around and saw that there was no one around. A red light flashed in his eyes, and his body swelled up rapidly. Roar! A huge red monster suddenly appeared in this dense forest. The monster was several feet tall, with sharp teeth and claws, red eyes, and knotted muscles all over its body. Behind it was a dragon tail swaying with its huge body, and two demon horns on its head stood up, showing its extraordinary momentum. Is this the Holy Lord? Mu Qiu looked at the body that was several times larger than the original Flame Demon Lord, checked the abnormality of the body, spread out his palms and murmured. This is going to be a rhythm against the heavens. This body that has been fused with the magic energy of the Holy Lord has completely inherited the ability of the Holy Lord. Except for the devil horns on the head and the red body, it is almost 70% similar to the original Holy Lord. Looking at the quiet and peaceful survivor city in front of him, the Flame Demon Lord transformed by Mu Qiu narrowed his red eyes slightly, and the surging murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Not good. Mu Qiu hurriedly patted his face and secretly said in his heart, Tiger Talisman. In an instant, a kind of clear thought came to his mind, and Mu Qiu's body shape changed from the original Flame Demon Lord back to the form of an ordinary person. Fortunately, just now I couldn't suppress the thought in my heart and wanted to rush to the city below to kill everyone. The sudden surge of power not only made Mu Qiu more excited than ever before, but also stimulated the vicious side of the Flame Demon Lord in Mu Qiu's heart, so Mu Qiu hurriedly used the Tiger Spell's ability to reconcile Yin and Yang to seal the violent emotions deep in his heart, and replace them with the current peaceful state. He was not stupid enough to completely seal the evil side in this end times of cannibalism. Only keeping the kind side of the saint would be really suicidal. Chapter 6, Niga's Mask, Shadow Core. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Compared to my previous state, my current peaceful mood allows me to disguise myself better. Don't be surprised by changes. This is the state Mu Qiu needs more now. He traveled to this man-eating apocalypse as an ordinary person in his previous life, and suddenly devoured the memory of the Fire Lord's abilities. He had just obtained the sign-in system and absorbed the Holy Lord's demonic energy. He experienced things that ordinary people would never experience in their lifetimes in just 3 days. It was good that he didn't go crazy because of excitement. Now he has a heart as calm as water state, which has really helped him stabilize a lot of emotions. The Great World Sign-in System. Thinking of the voice that just appeared in her mind, Mu Qiu murmured to herself, unfortunately, there is still no response. It seems that this Roush subsystem will only appear when it reaches its designated check-in location. He did not forget his last words before the system disappeared. Niga's Mask. Xiaoshi couldn't help but feel a movement in her heart because of Mu Qiu's current calm state of mind. It seems that the system wants me to inherit all the Holy Lord's inheritance. Niga mask is one of the 9 masks of the Sealer Ghost General in the Adventures of Jackie Chan. It has the ability to summon the Shadow Core. If you get this mask, doesn't it mean you have an entire ninja army that works hard, doesn't eat or drink, and never betrays? Mu Chio admitted that he was moved. But now, Mu Chio's deep eyes turned back, as if she felt something. Her body suddenly floated, and then flew directly towards the survivor camp in front. Not long after Mu Chio left, a rustling sound suddenly came from the woods behind. A team of soldiers armed with heavy guns and well-equipped equipment suddenly appeared on the hillside where Mu Chio was just now. The leader of the team was the same guardian eagle who found Mu Chio after tracking the fire demon lord that day. Wei Linger looked at the jungle in front of him that had been destroyed into ruins, with a solemn look in his eyes. You can't be wrong. The energy fluctuations just detected came from the S-class heretic who escaped from the laboratory a few days ago, the fire demon lord. Next to Wei Linger, a white-haired man wearing black-rimmed glasses and a suit walked to the front of the site that was destroyed by the fire demon lord to explore. He walked to Wei Linger calmly, with no expression on his face and said, "It's basically certain that the source of that weird energy comes from here." Wei Linger sighed and said, "He has become stronger again." The white-haired man looked outside the mountains. There was a city that had already become chaotic due to zombie riots. Before the end plan comes, he has no chance to evolve. After leaving the foot of the mountain, Mu Chio immediately activated the invisibility ability of the snake charm, all because he is now in an awkward position. The body of the fire demon lord was so huge that almost the moment he transformed, his clothes were torn to pieces, leaving only a few pitiful pieces of fabric covering his lower body. In other words, he is almost in a state of streaking now. The commotion on the mountain just now was too loud. Has it attracted the attention of the base? Mu Chio's current understanding of this world is not deep enough, and there is no need for him to be hostile to these human survivors. Fire Demon Lord is only the boss in the red zone, but as far as he knows, in the black zone above the red zone in Yuhai City, there are several auras that make even an S-level heretic like him feel palpitating. The Fire Lord who evolved after devouring the Holy Lord's demonic energy should be enough to compete with those powerful monsters in the black area. As he spoke, the wind blew under Mu Chio's feet, and she quickly rushed to an abandoned shopping mall at the foot of the mountain. The thick cold-proof clothing in these abandoned shopping malls had long been looted. Mu Chio did a simple search and found a complete set of shirts to put on. After thinking about it, he found a black windbreaker and put it on outside. Mu Chio took a look in the mirror and saw that his delicate and handsome face looked much better than the sloppy look he had before. Now he looks a bit like a villain boss. Mu Chio rubbed her chin, quite satisfied with her image. Return to your physical form and return to the nearby room of survivors. Survivors excavated in the ruins like Mu Chio will be sent to safe areas for resettlement after undergoing strict infection tests. Survivors like them were all assigned to this group of houses at the foot of the mountain, separated only by a mountain from the chaotic ruins of the city. Once a zombie riot occurs, the first to be affected will be these survivor rooms, located on the edge of the base. As a result, countless people flocked to it, scrambling to plunder resources, just to gain the qualification to settle near the center of the base's safe area. There was a comfortable environment, tight guards, and it was much safer than the housing areas on the edge. After returning to the room, Mu Chio lay directly back on the bed and closed her eyes. It looks like he is pretending to be asleep, but in fact he has secretly activated the power of the sheep talisman. Out-of-body experience. Mu Chio only felt that her whole body began to feel light, and immediately she was floating in the air from the bed. When he opened his eyes, he found that his body was still lying on the bed, while his spirit had already floated into the air. The survivors around him seemed to be unaware of his spirit, feeling that his soul and body had a mysterious connection. Mu Chio tried to put his soul into his body. When he opened his eyes again, his soul returned to his body, and Mu Chio regained control of his body. Mu Chio felt relieved and used his soul's ability to leave his body again, but this time his spirit was floating in the air. Without hesitation, this time Mu Chio drove his spirit through the wall and flew outside, relying on the silent and invisible spirit state to overlook the base. Mu Chio had a full view of the real situation of the entire Yuhai safe zone. The edge of the Yuhai base was Deserted, with only a few scattered teams of soldiers patrolling with guns, and if you go deeper, you can see some repaired street corners, and you can see some ragged wanderers here and there. There were few women and children around, and the streets were free to walk around. The neatly dressed pedestrians all looked tired. Mu Chiu could vaguely sense the energy fluctuations of the awakened ones. Mu Chiu found that the deeper he went into the center of the base, the more awakened ones he could sense, and most of them were in groups, with huge energy. Chapter 7. The search team is shocked, and the tiger roars in the forest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mu Chiu was lost in thought, his spirit hovering in the air. He found that his ability to leave the soul was not as unlimited as in the original work. At most a few hundred miles away from the Yuhai Base, he felt that the connection between the soul and the body was getting weaker and weaker. Realizing this, he did not dare to drive the spirit to explore deeper, but only peeked near the center of the base. Suddenly, Mu Chiu sensed a strange energy fluctuation. Mu Chiu's heart moved, and the spirit came to a tower near the southeast side of the center of the safe zone. In the tower, a group of mysterious people in purple robes were gathered together, and a six-pointed star pattern stained with blood appeared on the carpet surrounded by the crowd. This group of weird people gathered together, as if they were holding some weird ceremony. The purple-robed man in the lead lowered his head slightly, muttering something, and some obscure words came out of his mouth. The purple-robed people around him were all silent and said nothing. Mu Chiu felt something strange, and immediately drove his spirit forward, intending to find out what the purple-robed man was saying, but at this moment, the purple-robed leader suddenly raised his head, and suddenly, a withered, wrinkled old face that was about to die appeared in front of Mu Chiu. Who? The old man suddenly looked in the direction of Mu Chiu. Immediately, a gleam of light flashed in the old man's eyes, and an invisible spiritual wave attacked Mu Chiu's spirit like thunder. Mu Chiu's heart jumped, and he inexplicably felt that this attack could hurt his soul, so he hurriedly urged his spirit to pass through the wall to avoid it. With a bang, the thick and solid wall of the tower was directly hit by this spirit and a huge hole was created. Mu Chiu hurriedly returned to his body, and his face was still in shock when his soul returned to his body. At this time, the tiger talisman took effect, balancing Mu Chiu's panic again. What really surprised me was that the old man in purple robes could actually detect the existence of spirits. It is still unknown whether that mental attack can cause harm to me. It seems that we should not underestimate the awakened people in the base. Mu Chiu calmed down and analyzed carefully for a moment. As for what ceremony those mysterious purple-robed people were holding, it had nothing to do with Mu Chiu now. As long as the group of purple-robed people did not come to trouble him, Mu Chiu would not be idle and uncomfortable, so Mu Chiu closed his eyes with peace of mind. This time he really planned to take a rest. At noon, another soldier came to deliver food. Like the food in the past, it was still some rotten and moldy biscuits and bread. The strange thing was that a soldier handed Mu Chiu not moldy biscuits, but a bag of unopened purple rice bread and a sausage. Unlike the situation in the morning, no survivors came to snatch food this time, even though the food in Mu Chiu's hand was much better than that of others. Soon, with the saliva of the survivors around him swallowing, Mu Chiu finished the bread and sausage. In this way, until the afternoon. A team of soldiers came to the room where the survivors lived and took Mu Chiu away. Survivors were also brought out from several rooms around. Soon, under the leadership of the team of soldiers, Mu Chiu and his party came to a training camp near the edge of the safe zone. It was called a training camp, but it was actually a large stadium before the end of the world. After a simple transformation, it became the training ground of the Yuhai Base today. As soon as he entered, Mu Chiu saw that the entire venue was divided into several areas. And at the top of these areas, there was a platform. At this moment, there was a row of survivors like them standing under the platform. Mu Chiu counted them and found that there were dozens of survivors including them. Some survivors had strange looks and different body shapes from ordinary people. Some survivors were burly with bare faces, and even their palms were thick and dark like bear paws. Some survivors had green faces and fangs like evil ghosts, and there was always a wicked smile on the corners of their mouths, which made people feel palpitations at a glance. Mu Chiu and his group were taken to the platform by soldiers, and stood with dozens of survivors. There were more than a dozen men and women standing on the stage. Although they were not wearing uniforms, they were all dressed neatly and brightly, forming a sharp contrast with the ragged survivors below the stage. There are a few survivors this time. After all, it has been 2 years since the outbreak of the apocalypse. It is becoming increasingly difficult to find survivors in the ruins, and the probability of there being awakened people in them is also very small. I hope there are a few good hands in there. The search team's work will be difficult. These people whispered on the stage, but Mu Qiu's hearing was so sharp that he directly captured the key information of their conversations. Mu Qiu glanced at the stage, and soon, he found the pretty and graceful Wei Linger in the crowd. Wei Linger was also very happy to see Mu Qiu, and waved to Mu Qiu on tiptoe, and Mu Qiu smiled back. However, during the moment of interaction with Wei Linger, Mu Qiu suddenly found a vicious gaze staring at him. Mu Qiu turned his head and saw a strange man in the crowd, with sparse eyebrows and a wretched appearance, squinting his eyes and glancing at him intentionally or unintentionally. Although he acted very obscurely, Mu Qiu still keenly noticed the hostility in the man's eyes. I have never met him. Why does he have such an inexplicable hostility towards me? Mu Qiu thought to himself. At this moment, a burly man wearing a black leather vest on the platform glanced at everyone and said, "Since you can stand here, you must have been discovered to have superpowers and become one of the few lucky people in this doomsday, awakened ones." The eyes of many survivors below the stage were immediately attracted, and they all looked at the man in the vest with burning eyes. In this doomsday, having superpowers and becoming an awakener means that you have a ticket to become a superior person. Money, women, status, fame and fortune, as long as you want, all of these are at your fingertips. But suddenly, the man in the vest paused and his eyes became fierce. He roared, and veins popped out on his already burly body, and his already knotted muscles swelled even more. Thick hair began to grow on his face, and crisscrossing black lines spread across his body. Several black lines on his forehead vaguely formed the Chinese character. Even his hands grew a pair of tiger claws, which made him strong and powerful, and intimidating. In an instant, a tiger roar resounded throughout the training ground, and the people in the audience were deeply shocked and dazed. Tiger roars in the forest. Chapter 8 Conflict escalates, Wei Linger's supernatural power. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The many survivors in the audience were all shocked by the tiger roaring in the forest style of the man in the vest. As if they had seen some ferocious beast, they looked frightened and stood uneasily. Some people even fell to the ground, crying. Mu Qiu stood where he was. Of course he would not be frightened by this move. The roar of the man in the vest was actually a kind of spiritual attack, which directly hit the human heart and caused such a seemingly terrifying effect. Even ordinary people who are more determined will not be affected too much. Mu Qiu looked around and saw that there were still a few people who were determined and unaffected. After secretly writing down these people, Mu Qiu looked at the man in a vest who was roaring on the stage again. At this moment, the man in the vest is completely different from ordinary people. His whole body is covered with brown and yellow hair, like a standing tiger. The man in the vest looked at the frightened survivors below and frowned. However, while enjoying the privilege of being superior to others, you must also endure more severe challenges than ordinary people. At this time, a middle-aged man in a suit and leather shoes next to the man in the waistcoat echoed. The discovered awakened ones will join our search team. The mission of the search team is to advance into dangerous ruins, explore intelligence, search for resources, survivors, eliminate heretics, etc. The man in the vest glanced at everyone, and you are about to become a member of the search team. We are not only your instructors, but we will also become your future commanders and comrades in arms. After a passionate speech, Mu Qiu and others were ordered to demonstrate their awakening powers one by one. Mu Qiu originally thought that there would be some professional equipment for testing, but it turned out that he was overthinking it. It has only been 2 years since the apocalypse broke out, and no matter how advanced the technology is, it is still far from being able to easily detect a person's abilities. It's just that dozens of people showed their abilities to the search team on the stage one by one. I saw the man in the vest looking at the man in the suit next to him. The man in the suit waved his hand, and the pile of soil in front of him automatically gathered into a 2-meter-tall native. Now start showing off your powers. The first person to activate his ability was able to assimilate with the surrounding rocks, and his body became as hard as steel and indestructible. I saw the stone man swooping forward suddenly, hitting the native man blankly, and directly smashed the native man into pieces. Yes, this ability is very suitable for serving as a human shield. We want Lao Yan, that the middle-aged man in a suit next to the man in the vest saw this ability to assimilate rocks, his eyes lit up, and he asked the man in the vest directly for help. The woman in red on the side said angrily, "What's wrong, Lao Ma? Is your team the only one missing someone? Our team is also missing a forward." That the man in the vest called Lao Yan repeatedly stopped him. "Okay. Xiao Zhang and Lao Ma's team died in a battle with a heretic not long ago during a search mission. Let Lao Ma be the new recruit this time." That the woman in red said angrily, "Okay, then if there are any good seedlings, please keep them for us." In this way, a human flesh transaction was completed. The man in the suit waved his hand again, and the natives who had just been smashed to pieces by the stone man reunited. Next. Immediately afterwards, Mu Qiu saw a variety of awakening powers. Some people became as strong as an ox, lifting a 2-meter-tall native and throwing him away. Some people awakened to powerful gravity control and crushed the natives from the air. What's even more amazing is that there are awakened people with superpowers who have awakened the skill of proficiency in swordsmanship. As soon as a flying sword flies, the native has been cut into several sections. Doesn't this mean you have become the current swordsman? Mu Qiu looked on in amazement. Of course, there are also some useless awakeners, such as someone who awakened the special ability of fried rice. What is more bizarre is that there is a man who can enlarge a certain part of his body several times, which makes many men envious. Mu Qiu thought to herself, should we go back and find an opportunity to swallow up this kid's superpower, that as the survivors of Mu Qiu and his group have endless superpowers. The awakened members of the search team on the platform are also arguing endlessly. Steel people. Seeing the powerful abilities, the awakened ones on the stage inevitably started to fight for it, and some even promised huge profits to attract these newcomers who had just entered the base. Soon, the people in front showed off their awakened powers one by one, and it was Mu Qiu's turn. Mu Qiu took a step forward and looked at the natives who were slowly gathering, etc. At this moment, a high-pitched voice suddenly came from the platform. Mu Qiu raised her eyes and saw that the owner of the voice was the wretched man with sinister features and eyes that she had observed earlier. Let me test this person. Before anyone else could agree, the man jumped down and shouted sternly at Mu Qiu, "Boy, you're the one who crippled my eldest brother, right?" Mu Qiu was a little confused, but she heard the man with a wretched face continue. "I have been looking for my eldest brother in these ruins for 2 whole years. I never expected that when I see him again, he has been disabled by you. I will settle this account with you today." The wretched man's eyes flickered, his cheekbones bulged, and a cold murderous look flashed in his eyes. Mu Qiu then remembered that the big brother mentioned by the wretched man was actually the fat man who tried to snatch food in the morning and was destroyed by him. "So, you are here to seek revenge?" Mu Qiu said to the wretched man, and his eyes also looked at the stage at the same time. The old yen in charge wanted to say something, but when he heard that the wretched man had such a grudge against Mu Qiu, he stopped talking and narrowed his tiger eyes to ignore it. The awakened people in the other search teams did not intend to speak either. After all, the choice between a new awakened person and an experienced awakened person with extensive connections and strong strength was obvious. Suddenly, a cry like a yellow oriole coming out of a valley came from the search team members. "Ma Kun, are you trying to abuse your power for personal gain?" Wei Linger jumped down from the high platform, and looked at the wretched man with a pair of smart eyes. "I brought Mu Qiu here. Are you trying to go against me?" The wretched man's body suddenly swelled up, his skin strangely turned purple, a thick tail dragged out from behind him, his mouth became pointed in an instant, and a thin tongue was swallowing back and forth. In the blink of an eye, this wretched man called Ma Kun turned into a humanoid lizard. The lizard man narrowed his narrow red eyes and roared at Wei Linger, "Wei Linger, get out of here, this is none of your business." Wei Linger jumped into the air with a cry, and her exquisite figure turned around, and a furry brown tail appeared behind her. The girl's pretty face had changed a little. There was a pair of shining fangs on her lips, her bright eyes were like 2 crystal gems, and even a pair of small brown ears stood up on her head. Chapter 9 Shocking the whole audience, Mu Qiu's terrifying strength. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Is this a cat girl? So cute. When the survivors saw Wei Linger's transformation, they seemed to have awakened some strange otaku attributes, and were immediately overwhelmed by their cuteness. Mu Chio didn't expect that Wei Linger's ability was to transform into a cat girl, but on second thought, this girl's erratic personality is indeed suitable for awakening this ability. Seeing that Wei Linger's transformed cat girl and the wretched man's transformed lizard man were about to confront each other, Mu Chio shook his head and walked forward. He didn't have the heart to compete with such a small fish. Mu Chio, don't worry, since I, Wei Linger, brought you in, you will naturally join this lady's team. That when Wei Linger saw Mu Chio coming forward, she thought that the latter was worried that no team would be willing to accept him because of offending people, so she reminded him, it seems that because of the transformation into a cat girl, Wei Linger's voice has a bit of a coquettish tone. Mu Chio laughed. This young lady seemed careless, but in fact, she was a considerate person. Mu Chio looked at the 2-meter-tall lizard man beside him and said calmly, it was your brother who came to rob my food first, so I punished him a little. Now you want to avenge your brother? That the lizard man spit out his tongue and made a dead hoarse voice, don't talk nonsense to me. Boy, let me tell you that fists are the greatest truth in this doomsday. Before he finished speaking, the lizard man suddenly swung his thick tail and whipped Mu Chio like a poisonous whip. A huge sound of breaking through the air came, and the strong pressure even made the air tremble. The sudden attack of the lizard man made many awakened people, including Wei Linger, unable to react. Everyone could only watch helplessly as this powerful blow that could break gold and stone was about to hit Mu Chio's flesh and blood. Boom! The heavy blow shattered the wall behind Mu Chio into rubble. Dust flew, smoke scattered. There were even several survivors who were too late to dodge and were injured by the broken rubble, causing harm to innocent people. Everyone could almost imagine that this giant python-like whip hitting Mu Chio's mortal body would be a scene of blood and flesh flying. But the next moment, the flying dust dissipated, and a scene that everyone did not expect appeared. The wall behind Mu Chio collapsed, but Mu Chio did not move at all. Mu Chio raised his arm, and what he held in his right hand was the giant tail of the lizard man like an elephant's trunk. The new awakener actually caught the giant tail of the lizard man Ma Kuan with his bare hands. What a joke! The red-dressed woman next to Tiger Man Lao Yen widened her eyes, looking at Mu Chio who was holding the lizard man's tail in disbelief. Seeing that his expression was calm, he didn't look like he was struggling at all. Looking back at Ma Kuan, his face was distorted, his blood vessels were bulging, and he had obviously used all his strength. If I remember correctly, Ma Kuan is a B-level awakener, right? The man in the suit also found it a bit incredible and asked Lao Yen. A solemn look also appeared on Lao Yen's face. He looked at Mu Chio's calm face and nodded slowly. This kid doesn't look like an ordinary awakener who has not received professional training. Wei Linger's lively cat pupils were also full of doubts. When did Mu Chio become so powerful? I remember he is not an awakener of the elemental system. The awakeners around were talking about it, and they were all horrified by Mu Chio's strange power, but the next scene made them dumbfounded. Mu Chio lowered his head, and his hair was flying, so people couldn't see his eyes clearly. Only through the opening and closing of his mouth could he hear his indifferent voice. You are right about one thing. Whether in the end of the world or in the past, fists are always the greatest truth. A shocking scene happened. Mu Chio's palm condensed a layer of frost. As he spoke, this layer of frost extended from Mu Chio's palm to the tail of the lizard man, and then spread to the whole body of the lizard man at a lightning speed, and condensed into ice in an instant. Freeze! The lizard man was frozen into an ice sculpture in the blink of an eye. Everyone was speechless by this scene, but they saw that the lizard man Ma Kuan had a ferocious expression, and his eyes were still filled with the fear before being frozen. Gurgle. The sound of swallowing saliva sounded, and the scene fell into a moment of silence. Finally, someone suddenly shouted in the crowd. Element. Elemental system, this person is an awakener of the elemental system. With this person's shout, many awakeners suddenly realized and looked at Mu Chio below with shocked eyes. Tiger Man Lao Yen was also a little shocked at this moment, and said, it turned out to be a rare elemental awakener. Now we can be considered to have picked up a treasure. More than that, the man in the suit echoed, based on his ability to freeze Ma Kun with a wave of his hand, he is now at least a B-level awakener, or even A-level. Wei Linger was also stunned. She did not expect that a survivor she picked up from the ruins would have such a powerful strength. Wei Linger came to Mu Chio's side in a few jumps, and looked at Mu Chio with a pair of smart eyes, with a strange light in her eyes. I didn't expect you to be so powerful. Mu Chio smiled indifferently at Wei Linger's scrutiny and explained, I have been staying in the supermarket before, and I don't know much about the outside world. The implication is, I have been practicing in seclusion before, and I didn't know that you people outside are so weak. Wei Linger. Handsome boy, your name is Mu Chio, right? Just then, a charming voice that was completely different from Wei Linger came. Mu Chio turned his head and saw that a woman in red on the stage had walked over at some point. The woman was wearing a red cheongsam, with her white and slender thighs under the forks. The cheongsam outlined her enchanting figure, but it was convex and curvy, much fuller than Wei Linger. The woman's face was also beautiful and charming. When she smiled, she looked like a blooming rose. The beauty mole under the corner of her eye added a bit of charm to her. There is no doubt that this is a beauty. Even if she is placed in the world, she is a disaster for the country and the people. Lu Qianqian, what do you want to do? The arrival of the charming woman sounded the alarm for Wei Linger. She flashed in front of Mu Chio and looked at the enchanting figure in front of her with vigilance. The look in her eyes was like a female cat protecting her food, ready to explode at any time. Chapter 10 Strength Beyond S Level, Destruction Level. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Don't be so nervous, Linger. I just want to ask if this handsome boy named Mu Chio is interested in joining my team. The enchanting woman called Lu Qianqian by Wei Linger twisted her waist like a water snake and walked towards Mu Chio, but was stopped by Wei Linger. Don't dream. I brought Mu Chio back to the base and he has joined my team a long time ago. Wei Linger scolded, and then looked at Mu Chio, looking up and said, Mu Chio, don't you think so? Although it was a question, the tone used was affirmative, and the sharp little tiger teeth were exposed, as if you are not sure, you will bite you to death. Mu Chio hurriedly nodded. Compared to these unfamiliar people, following Wei Linger seems to be a good choice. Unexpectedly, Lu Qianqian still refused to give up. She walked around Wei Linger and came to Mu Chio, whispering, Little handsome boy, there are many benefits to coming to my sister. Her rosy lips rested beside Mu Chio's ear, charming, and her watery eyes stared at Mu Chio, captivating and inspiring. Hey! What do you want to do, vixen? Wei Linger immediately exploded, waving her sharp cat claws to attack Lu Qianqian. Okay, Linger. Old Yen stopped Wei Linger, and then the other awakeners walked down from the stage, looking at Mu Chio with eyes full of greed. Yes, Mu Chio was not wrong. The eyes of those search team members looking at him were full of greedy desires. What does it mean if an elemental awakener is cultivated? Even the lowest level elemental system has powerful destructive power once awakened, which is several times higher than the ordinary mutation system and super energy system. If there is a powerful elemental awakener accompanying the team, it can provide a strong survival guarantee for the awakeners of the entire team. Hello, little brother, I am Wang Minglang from the survival team. Now I sincerely invite you to join our team. The salary can be discussed in detail. The middle-aged man in a suit and leather shoes just now actually handed Mu Chio a business card, and then also handed Mu Chio an olive branch. Immediately afterwards, Mu Chio received a variety of invitations. Some people promised a large sum of money, some beautiful women were close to temptation, and some guaranteed that Mu Chio would be given a house in the safe zone if he joined. Mu Chio, similarly, my wolf warrior team also welcomes you to join. The tiger man Lao Yen also wanted to recruit Mu Chio. Of course, no matter what, the final choice is still on you. The survivors in the same group as Mu Chio looked at each other, and they were actually left aside, looking at Mu Chio who was like a moon surrounded by stars. The others all hated why they did not awaken the elemental power. Mu Chio was surrounded by a group of awakeners, and many benefits were thrown at him. In the end, he shook his head and said, Thank you for your kindness, I'd better join Wei Linger's team. Seeing this, everyone could only return with regret, only the Chongsam beauty Lu Qianqian was still unwilling to give up. She wrapped around Mu Qiu's waist like a water snake and said in a delicate voice, "Really don't think about it again. Sister can talk to you alone." Lu Qianqian twisted her hair, and her charming eyes looked straight at Mu Qiu. The moment she looked at him, Mu Qiu was deeply involved and couldn't help but nod. Not good. Mu Qiu hurriedly activated the power of the tiger spell, calmed down the throbbing in his heart. Mu Qiu looked at Lu Qianqian calmly. This woman must have used a charm to make him lose his mind. Seeing Mu Qiu's reaction, Lu Qianqian realized that her charm was ineffective, and turned away immediately. Before leaving, Lu Qianqian touched her fair jade hand on her cinnabar-like red lips and blew a kiss to Mu Qiu. "Little brother, when did you change your mind? Sister welcomes you here any time." Soon, the remaining survivors also showed their own abilities. Some powerful abilities were divided and absorbed by the search teams. Of course, there was no elemental system as powerful as Mu Qiu among the remaining people. Once the Awakener test was over, unlike the other survivors who were taken away together, Mu Qiu was hurriedly taken away by Wei Linger. Not bad. Mu Qiu, it's not in vain that I have tried so hard to win you over. Wei Linger cancelled the transformed civet cat form at this moment, and walked on the street like a girl next door. Seeing her jumping look, it was obvious that she was very happy with Mu Qiu's performance today. Mu Qiu was helpless about this. After all, he came to this Yuhai safe zone without support. What if he joined a team blindly and was bullied by bad guys? Or Wei Linger, this innocent girl, is easier to fool. I have too many secrets, so I should keep a low profile. By the way, even if I was prepared that you are an awakener of the elemental system, I didn't expect you to be so powerful. Wei Linger suddenly turned around, raised the corner of her mouth, and smiled. With your qualifications, maybe you can become the guardian of the base in the future. Guardian? Mu Qiu frowned. You should know that after the end of the world, many people were infected with the virus and awakened to superpowers, but there is no clear classification standard for these superpowers. So people classified all powers into different levels according to their energy level. Wei Linger raised her head and looked at Mu Qiu, speaking seriously. D-level awakeners are basically the energy level of all awakeners when they first awaken their powers. After becoming A-level awakeners, they are already strong in their own right. What about those above a level? Mu Qiu suddenly asked. Some time ago, the base sent a large number of personnel to capture an S-class heretic, the Fire Demon Lord. Hey, what's wrong with you? Wei Linger said as if she noticed Mu Qiu's unnaturalness. Mu Qiu had a lump in her throat and said hurriedly, it's okay, just keep talking. Wei Linger was a little confused, but continued, at that time, in order to capture an S-class heretic, the base paid a huge price. The elite team of more than 1,000 people and hundreds of awakened people were almost defeated. Only half of the time did he capture the Fire Demon Lord alive. The scientists originally wanted to use the S-class Fire Demon Lord to conduct experiments, but unfortunately they let him escape in the end. Mu Qiu suddenly had cold sweat dripping down his forehead. If he was discovered, wouldn't he be committing suicide? He quickly changed the subject. Then what level is beyond S level? He remembered that in the black area above the red area, there was an aura that made even the Fire Demon Lord at that time tremble. Wei Linger suddenly stopped and her face looked a little solemn. What's above the S level is the destruction level. The destructive level powerhouse is the guardian I just told you about. If you can protect the safety of a city with one person's power, you are a guardian.